The insane story behind Jack the Ripper, 1888, London's most infamous serial killer who brutally murdered at least 5 women, leaving their bodies mutilated. Step with us into the chilling depths of Victorian London, where the echoes of a brutal killer still linger. Over a century has passed since Jack the Ripper stalked the streets of Whitechapel, but his shadow remains as dark and haunting as ever. In this episode, we venture further into the legend, peeling back the layers of fear, mystery, and horror that have cemented him as one of history's most infamous figures. Through fog-filled alleys, gruesome crimes, and unanswered questions, prepare to meet the monster who redefined the meaning of terror. Through fog-filled alleys, gruesome crimes, and unanswered questions, prepare to meet the monster who redefined the meaning of terror. Through fog-filled alleys, gruesome crimes, and unanswered questions, prepare to meet the monster who redefined the meaning of terror. The year is 1888, and the area of Whitechapel in London's East End is a maze of poverty-stricken despair. Streets are pungent with the smell of unwashed bodies, rotting waste, and the smoke from coal fires. Men crowd into pubs, drowning their sorrows in pints of ale, while women, some forced by desperation into prostitution, linger in shadowed corners, hoping to make enough for their next meal, or a bed for the night. Life here is an endless grind of survival, crime, and fear, and while the streets are already dangerous, one presence makes them even more perilous. A killer prowls the darkness, efficient, invisible, merciless. For the women of Whitechapel, doom now has a name: Jack the Ripper. While suspicion and fear consume the East End, 5 women pay the ultimate price. These victims, forever tied to the Ripper's story, are known as the Canonical 5. Each was brutally slain, their bodies left mutilated in ways that shocked even seasoned police. Mary Ann Nichols found on August 31, 1888, her throat slashed and her body butchered. Mary's lifeless form marks the beginning of the Ripper's reign of terror. Annie Chapman becomes the second, discovered on September 8th. Her organs missing, her brutalized body an offering from a killer clearly escalating. On September 30th, the night that would become known as the double event, Elizabeth Stride has her life cut short, but her murder seems rushed, incomplete. The Ripper is interrupted. Later that same evening, Catherine Eddowes is found, her face mutilated, her organs viciously removed. This time, the killer finishes his dark work. Finally, Mary Jane Kelly murdered indoors on November 9th, her remains hardly recognizable, her death the most gruesome of all. Each victim lived a tough life, navigating poverty and survival like so many others in Whitechapel. Yet, their deaths became the symbol of one of history's greatest horrors. Jack the Ripper's method reveals a malevolent rhythm. The victims are middle-aged women, often sex workers. The attacks occur in the dead of night, each brutal, swift, and deliberate. Throats are slit first, followed by frenzied yet precise mutilation of the torso, an act not only of killing but domination. This killer does not simply want to end lives, he wants to etch his darkness onto the world. Why these women? Why this part of London? Many theories suggest social status plays a role. Whitechapel's poor and marginalized provided the Ripper victims who wouldn't be missed, or so he might have thought. Amid the growing chaos in Whitechapel, the media fans the flames. Newspapers capitalize on the morbid fascination sweeping London. It's during this media frenzy that letters allegedly written by the Ripper begin arriving. The most famous, the Dear Boss letter, taunts the police, teasing the killer's identity and signing off with the now infamous moniker Jack the Ripper. Another correspondence, the Saucy Jackie postcard, alludes to the ghastly double event with chilling nonchalance, but it is the From Hell letter that truly horrifies, sent with half a kidney, purportedly from one of his victims. But do these letters truly come from the Ripper himself, or are they the work of opportunists, feeding off the panic for notoriety? The truth remains hidden, alongside the killer's identity. The limitations of Victorian forensic investigation hinder the hunt for Jack the Ripper. In an era without fingerprints or DNA testing, detectives rely on witness statements, crude autopsies, and vague descriptions. This is a time when urban policing is still evolving, and even basic evidence is often mishandled or overlooked. By today's standards, the crime scenes were catastrophes. Curious onlookers trampled through them, and early investigators lacked the tools to preserve crucial information. As a result, the case remains a prime example of how ill-equipped the 19th century police were to deal with a criminal of such monstrous finesse. Since the murder stopped, theories about the killer's identity have abounded. Many believe he was someone with medical training due to the precise removal of organs. This has led to potential suspects like Montague John Druitt, a troubled barrister, or Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant and known patient of an asylum. Some go further, suggesting extraordinary suspects, perhaps a member of the royal family or famed painter Walter Sickert. There's even a theory that the Ripper wasn't a man at all, but a woman who used her anonymity to blend in. Despite countless investigations and advancements in criminal profiling, the true identity of Jack the Ripper remains as shrouded in mystery as the fog-bound alleys of Whitechapel. And then, in late 1888, it stops. The Ripper vanishes as suddenly as he appeared. The streets no longer run red with his victim's blood. Why? One theory argues he died or was incarcerated for another crime. Another suggests he simply left London, starting a new life, and perhaps even continuing his spree elsewhere. The abrupt end is almost as haunting as the murders themselves. Did the Ripper disappear into obscurity, or was he always hiding in plain sight? Jack the Ripper is more than just a name. His crimes created a cultural phenomenon, cementing his horrifying legacy in both history and myth. For many Victorians, he became a symbol of their deepest fears, of urban life's anonymity, of unchecked violence, of a society teetering on the edge of chaos. That terror persists. Over a century later, the Ripper's story has spawned books, films, and even entire genres of storytelling. He is an icon of evil, mythologized, dissected, and studied, not just for the crimes he committed, but for the darkness of the human psyche revealed through his story. Today, advancements in forensics and criminology continue to shed light on the case. DNA analysis, behavioral profiling, and other modern techniques have bolstered identification efforts. But the limits of 19th century evidence leave crucial gaps. Each new revelation spawns just as many questions. Who sent the infamous letters? Were there more victims beyond the canonical five? And most tantalizingly, could we one day know with certainty who Jack the Ripper truly was? What is it about Jack the Ripper that keeps us coming back? The blood-chilling details of his violence aside, it's the mystery that captivates, the absence of closure. Humanity has a morbid fascination with the unsolved, a need to understand the dark forces in our history and perhaps within ourselves. The Ripper remains a reflection of the parts of society and human nature we wish we could forget but cannot escape. His shadow is not just cast over Whitechapel but over us all. The case of Jack the Ripper is a reminder of life's fragility, the depths of human depravity, and the endless human quest for answers. His legacy is grotesque yet compelling, a black mirror where the worst of humanity's fears are reflected. As we close this journey into his bloody and infamous story, we leave you with the question that may never have an answer. Who was Jack the Ripper? Perhaps that mystery itself is the most chilling part of all.